Ken Duberstein is a former chief of staff to President Ronald Reagan. He's joining us now by phone. Ken, let's talk about what her legacy means to this country.
Jamie, it's good to be with you on this very sad day. Nancy Reagan truly was a partner of President Reagan. He was better when she was in the room. She was better when he was in the room. It was the grace and elegance, the class, the dignity that projected America throughout the world and here at home. It enabled President Reagan to tear down walls like the Berlin Wall, to build alliances. They really were not only a true partnership, but it was an actual love affair. It's not a Hollywood one, although they were in Hollywood. It was a true love affair. They just lit up everything.
He really needed her in a number of different dealings. They needed each other from what it sounds like.
As I said, he was always better when she was in the room. There was a sparkle. There was a smile on his face when Nancy ever showed up. And, she was a quiet, major influence. She had, I'm sure, had great pillow talk with the president. And together, they moved America forward.
That's, it's interesting when you go and you read back. They were as a couple, they're so beloved. But in some instances, there was criticism initially over some of the things she did when she entered the White House, like change the china. Some people thought she was a little flashy. They were from Hollywood. Can you talk about how it grew from that to really being this couple that people really loved and admired?
Well, you remember when President Reagan was running for the presidency in 1980, he was criticized because people said, how can an actor be president?
Right.
And his answer was, how can you be president and not be an actor? Whether it was The Morning in America, the Shining City on a Hill, he started out to change our country and fundamentally change the world. She was there all the time with him. They used to eat dinner on TV trays. How quaint is that now? They used to get in there, evidently used to get in their pajamas and watch TV at night. But there was always the pillow talk. There was always the conversation between the two of them. But as far as the flash and dash, it brought an elegance to the White House that you certainly hadn't seen for many, many years. And the more the Reagans succeeded, the more people fell in love with them. And now everybody, Republicans and Democrats, are invoking the name of Ronald and Nancy Reagan.
I think it's interesting, Ken, you in previous interviews said that she was hurt by the criticism, too. She felt that people had been picking on her.
Well, they had picked not only on her, but she was especially resented when they picked on the president, on her husband, her beloved husband.
I think what's interesting that you were just talking about, too, is that she did have this elegance, and we're showing a lot of video of her. Even in terms of fashion, it was something that we had never seen in a first lady before. She really kind of set the tone for what we see now. She's often, Mrs. Obama is compared a lot to Nancy Reagan now in terms of kind of stepping things up. Did she kind of change the game in terms of what it meant to be a first lady?
Well, I think she was very active in the community. She was active on the anti-drug campaign, Just Say No. She was involved in a lot of things. But fundamentally, she was always there for the president. The same way I'm sure Michelle Obama is always there for President Obama. But what Nancy Reagan did was lift the elegance, the class of the White House, the dignity, the grace, so that you knew that you dressed up when you were in the White House. You knew that everything was going to be done absolutely first rate, because that's the Nancy Reagan way of doing things.
You know, we've talked a lot about she was very active behind the scenes in her husband's presidency. But even in 2001, she broke with President George W. Bush and endorsed embryonic stem cell research. So she was still active, you know, long after she had left the White House. As you said, you know, participated in the Just Say No campaign as well. What do you think her legacy will be in terms of some of the social issues and things of that magnitude?
I think she rounded some of the edges of President Reagan, and she was able to reach out in the community. She enabled Elizabeth Taylor to talk to the president, so he started helping out with funding AIDS research. A lot of this was, helped along, aided by Nancy Reagan, who was able to talk to the president in a way as a couple would talk, so that he could not modify his views, but understand the other point of view, and go forward with that. So it was, look, the relationship was so tight. When you saw one, you saw both of them. And, I benefited when I was chief of staff, because Nancy Reagan wanted was to make sure that her husband was doing all the right things and was well served. She always put him first.
Ken, I have to ask you, as chief of staff, she said in an interview back in 1985 that she says, people tell me things, and if something is about to become a problem, I'm not above calling a staff person and asking about it. I'm a woman who loves her husband, and I make no apologies for looking out for his personal and political welfare. What was it like being a staffer in the White House? You've described their love story, but what was she like as somebody who worked alongside her husband?
She was very helpful to me when I was chief of staff, in the sense of sharing information and insights with me, something that the president had mentioned the night before, or something that was bothering him, or something that I needed to take a look at. It was shared directly with me and nobody else. And we had a very good relationship as a result, because I was there to serve her husband and make sure that he succeeded in his goals. And unlike another predecessor of mine, I never hung up the phone on Nancy Reagan. I was always there to take her phone calls, and I benefited as a result, and hopefully the president benefited too.
Ken Duberstein, former chief of staff for Ronald Reagan, thank you so much for joining us. I know this has to be a tough day for you as well, working so closely with the family.
Thank you, Jamie, and I appreciate it. And it's a sad day, but remember, they're now together, the president and Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you. And they will be buried together as well.